All right, adjust yourselves. Short ones in the front, tall ones in the back. Okay, we're ready. Okay. Oh, sorry. Should I take my heels off? Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm Congresswoman Linda Sanchez, the Vice Chair of the Democratic Caucus. I'm joined by our fearless leader, Leader Pelosi, and some outstanding colleagues to talk about the DPCC messaging for the Democratic Party, our better deal for the United States of America. The DPCC co-chairs, David Cicilline, Cheri Bustos, and Hakeem Jeffries, have been working with our colleagues in the caucus to try to present a crisp message on democratic values and what we intend to do for this country. And it's an agenda that I believe speaks to all four corners of our country. It talks about raising wages and creating jobs, cutting costs for working families, and making sure that everyone can succeed in the 21st century. I think we all hear it when we go home. American families are tired of paying more and earning less and feeling like they're falling further and further behind. This bold agenda makes it clear to every American that Democrats are fighting to help their family. And with that, I'm pleased to introduce one of the co-chairs of the DPCC, Cheri Bustos, who hails from Moline and represents Illinois' 17th District. Cheri?
All right. Thank you, Linda. Good morning, everyone. I'm just going to give you a quick background of what it took to get here today. Really, the stars of this news conference are standing behind me as representatives of each of the major caucuses that we have in the Democratic caucus. So first of all, we stand here united behind this message of a better deal, better jobs, better wages, a better future. We met, David Cicilline and Hakeem Jeffries and I met with more than 180 of our colleagues to get to this point. We also met with each of our major caucuses, in some cases numerous times, and where we did have any differences in where we were heading, we got together, we'd have a family dinner, and here we are with this message united. But I think it's also important to know, while we listened to each of our members of our delegation, they go home and they listen to people they represent. So this is really a reflection of the American public, for us to acknowledge that the economy is not working for a lot of people out there. And we know that we have to offer a better deal. And that's what this is all about. Lastly, this is not a message, this is an agenda. So while we're talking about it, launched it yesterday, we're talking about it today, you will hear us talk about the economic agenda that we stand for as Democrats. And that's really what this is about. With that, I'd like to turn it over to my co-chair, David Cicilline from the state of Rhode Island.
Thank you, Cheri. Thank you to our leader, and thank you to all of our colleagues who are here. Thank you to the vice chair of our caucus. The product that we presented yesterday, the Democratic Agenda for the American people, was really a product of all of the people behind me who went home every week, listened to their constituents, and shared their best ideas with us as we developed this agenda. And central to this is jobs. People in Rhode Island and people all across the country are worried about their economic future, and this agenda includes a bold proposal to create 10 million good-paying, full-time jobs, an aggressive plan to modernize our infrastructure and make it the best in the world again, invest in the manufacturing economy so we can start making things again in America, doubling our investments in apprenticeships and career training, and working closely with community colleges, the private sector, to create good career paths for people in millions of jobs in this country. And finally, to really focus on making sure that families are valued and hard work is honored, includes a living wage and fair work schedules, paid family leave, all the things that are important to the American worker. And in the weeks ahead, we're going to propose and introduce more specific legislative proposals to support this agenda. But this is really about responding to the urgent economic anxiety of the American people. And I just want to thank my colleagues who played such an important role in crafting this agenda. And with that, I'd like to invite the third co-chair, Hakeem Jeffries from the great state of New York.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Cheri. Thank you, Leader Pelosi. It's my honor and privilege to stand with these tremendous leaders of our caucus across the broad spectrum, the gorgeous mosaic that House Democrats represent, all of whom are here united behind the notion that the people we represent understand that things have changed, not for the better, but for the worse. It may be because of globalization or automation, the decline of unionization. It may be because of the rise of special interests, but things have changed in a significant way. And the American people in inner city America, in rural America, in suburban America, all deserve a better deal. Higher pay, lower costs, tools for the 21st century economy. That's an agenda that unites us all, and I'm proud to stand here with all of my distinguished colleagues in this effort. It's now my great honor and privilege to present the distinguished gentleman from the Palmetto State, the assistant leader, the once and future whip of the United States House of Representatives, none other than the Honorable James Clyburn.
Thank you very much, Mr. Co-Chair. Let me join all the members of our caucus in thanking these three co-chairs for this magnificent, simplistic, forceful, action-oriented theme that will, we believe, connect this caucus to the American people in a way that will allow everybody in America to achieve a better deal for their futures. It is one thing to create jobs. It's something else, again, to provide the tools that people need to have in order to take advantage of whatever jobs may be created. Those tools must include a decent, solid education. They must include a healthy environment within which to raise families, and they must include good health going forward and accessibility to affordable health. All of that is wrapped in to this tremendous 21st century tools for the future, and I thank them so much for getting us to this point. And with that, I'm pleased to yield to the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Cuellar.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim. Thank you so much. And I also join, I want to thank the three chairs that have reached out to everybody, and on behalf of the Blue Dogs and one of our co-chair, I certainly want to say thank you for the great work that they've done to include everybody. You know, the Blue Dogs have talked about growing the economy since 1995 when we were created. We also have focused on bringing the nation back on a fiscally sustainable path to ensure prosperity for our children and our grandchildren, reducing government waste and making sure we have accountability of our leaders here in Washington, D.C. On the Better Deal agenda that has been crafted by all the caucuses together, we agree on the broader goal of creating economic prosperity for the American people. We have to ensure a good education for our children, make sure that the small businesses can succeed, because 2/3 of all the jobs are created by small businesses in our local communities and across the nation, and making sure that our workforce is equipped with the right skills. So what we want to do is create economic opportunities, not guarantee results, but economic opportunities. And on this, I'll let the co-chair take up the remaining balance of my time, Mr. Jim Costa from California.
Thank you very much, Henry. As fellow co-chair of the Blue Dogs, I can say we appreciate the Democratic leadership for the participation and the inclusion in these efforts. And we also believe that, frankly, we need to focus on a better deal for all America. And that begins with jobs. Obviously, the fact is that a large part of America throughout the country has been frustrated with the lack of ability to reach agreements in Washington, D.C. They understand that our nation's capital isn't working for them the way they'd like to see it happen. And just as there isn't one kind of a Democrat, there are not just one kind of message that works. But we agree on the broad goal that a better deal for all Americans is truly what a lot of our constituencies are yearning for, whether it's in blue-collar communities throughout the Midwest, or whether it's in rural America that many of us represent. One size doesn't fit all. We have an economically diverse country, and what works in some of our larger metropolitan areas, whether it be San Francisco or New York, doesn't always affect rural areas in Minnesota, Oregon, Texas, or even California. And that's the reality we face. And the beautiful thing about this country and the beautiful thing about the Democratic Caucus is our diversity, the diversity that is reflected here before you today. Blue Dogs have always had a core set of principles that we think lead to better outcomes that Henry enumerated in his opening statement. In 2010, when we were in the majority, there were 53 Blue Dogs as a part of our caucus. After the election, our numbers dropped to 26. Today, we're 18. The fact of the matter is that the path to a majority in terms of a better deal really reflects the needs to focus on issues that are important in rural America and many of the working blue-collar districts throughout our country. And so that is our challenge, and that is our goal. We're grateful that the Democratic leadership and our colleagues here have an understanding that we need to focus in these areas. Our constituents that we all represent want to know that we represent them in an honest way, and that means that we will focus on job number one, which is improving the economy of this country. And I think that's the broader message that is a part of this better deal, and we look forward to continuing to participate. I have the honor and the responsibility to introduce our next colleague, a person who I've known for many years, again from the great state of California, Congresswoman Judy Chu. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Congressmember Costa. I'm Judy Chu, the chair of the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus. What many people may not realize about Asian Pacific Islanders is that they are one of the fastest growing poverty populations in the wake of the Great Recession, increasing by 38% compared to just 27% for the general population. At the end of the day, Asian Pacific Islanders want what every other American wants: a better job, a better wage, and a better future for themselves and their children. And that's why I'm so proud to be here with my colleagues to introduce our better deal for America. So many of our Asian Pacific Islanders are small business owners. They come here, work day and night and day to make ends meet, but they don't have the means to expand their businesses. Well, our plan would help them by providing a new tax credit to employers to train and hire new workers. This would give employers the ability to train and hire workers and employ them at a good wage. We would change the tax code so that we could place an investment on people more so than equipment, finally putting hardworking Americans first. This plan helps shift our economy from one that favors corporations and billionaires to one that favors middle-class families who've long been the backbone of our economy. Republicans may believe that corporations are people, but a corporation has never had a sleepless night wondering how they'll make ends meet. But real families do every day, and they deserve a fair playing field. That's why I'm so excited to support this proposal so that we can have a better deal for everyone. And now I'm so honored to introduce my fellow colleague from Los Angeles County, the very hardworking Tony Cardenas.
Thank you very much, Judy. Appreciate this opportunity. And one thing I want to remind all of us is the government is here to help and not get in the way. As a former small business owner myself and a father of four, every day I work hard to make sure that I was able to pay my employees, and equally important to make sure that I came home to provide for my family. I think it's important for everybody to understand that we all want the same thing. There was a press conference about 20 years ago with the Speaker of the House in California, gathered the press, and he said, I'm going to tell you a secret. I'm going to tell you what the secret is of what the Latino community wants in America. So I'm going to share that with you today. Every Latino wants good schools to send their kids to. They want safe neighborhoods in which to live in, and they want to be able to have a good job. That's the secret. If you notice, ladies and gentlemen, that's what we all want. Those are the basics of the American dream, to be able to have those simple basic things. And let me tell you, the Republican tax plan, their health care plan, their jobs plan is not about that. It's about providing for the richest Americans, the wealthiest Americans. And what we're talking about today is getting back down to the basics of reminding all of the American people that we as Democrats, we represent people who want to be able to get a job and keep their job. We represent people who want to be able to send their children to safe and good schools, and also to live in a neighborhood that we feel comfortable in. I think it's important for us to understand that in order to do that, we need to make sure that people have jobs in this 21st century economy. America's economy is getting stronger, and since the 2008 recession continues to do so. As we keep growing and progressing, workers need new skills and training to keep the momentum building. The new jobs of tomorrow require new skills and training, and we should be working to help working families have every opportunity to stay in the game. We're ready to work together to create apprenticeships and skills training and programs that give workers the opportunity to provide for their family. Those are the basic things that we are proposing in our legislation, and those are the messages that we're going to remind the American public that we're all about. Democrats will continue to demand that the leadership of the Republicans continue to do the job that we think we need to do and stop these broken promises. And now I'd like to turn the floor over to my colleague, Congresswoman Custer.
Thanks, Tony. Well, good afternoon. I'm here on behalf of the Women's Caucus, and I just want to thank our co-chairs for the messaging and for putting together this agenda that works all across America. I actually come from a district that is a rural district, but I also have suburban communities and one urban community. And I think what we know about women voters, just as Tony has said about Hispanic voters and about Americans, is that we just want a fair chance here. We just want a better deal than the deal that we have right now. We want to have the skills to get ahead in the 21st century workplace, so better skills, better pay, and most importantly, a better future for our families. We are the sandwich generation. We're juggling and need paid family leave for newborns as well as taking care of our parents. And we also support this agenda because what it will do for the skills for women all across this country. I just want to make a note of an exciting development today. The Girl Scouts have announced a new badge in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And I think that is symbolic of the future that we want to have together. Better skills, better jobs, better pay, and a better deal for the American people and for women and hardworking families. So I'm delighted to introduce my colleague from the great state of Wisconsin, Mark Pocan.
Well, thank you, Annie, and I'm here to represent the Progressive Caucus. Raul Grijalva and I co-chair that caucus, the largest values-based caucus within our caucus, mid-70s in members. We have always said that the core economic issues are at the center of everything that we need to talk about. What people talk about at their kitchen table, whether or not they can afford their mortgage, have health insurance for their family, send their kids to college if they want to, take a family vacation, those are the core issues. And if we're going to talk to people about anything else that we care about, and there are many things we care about, we have to be centered around better jobs, better wages, and a better future. So we are glad to share these values with all the different caucuses within the Democratic caucus. We are all on the same page. And if you look at the Republican Party, not only are they not on the same page, but they're not reading out of the same book, and whatever books they're reading from aren't even in the same language. So we're glad to all be here, united around this core economic message that's so very important, and the Progressive Caucus is glad to work with everyone else in advancing these principles as we move forward. And it's my pleasure to introduce someone from my class who is representing the New Dems, Scott Peters from San Diego, California.
Thank you, Mark. Good morning, everyone. Last year, we got a wake-up call. We discovered that many of America's working families didn't know what the Democratic Party stood for, and worse, they felt we didn't have their backs. I grew up in a middle-class family, relied on student loans through college, and watched my parents work hard to give me and my 3 sisters a chance at a bright future. And I ran for Congress to fight for families like the one I grew up in. But our economy is changing, and that's not working the same for everyone. So it's on us as leaders to listen and to come up with solutions so no one is left behind. So I'm encouraged today that our party is focused on creating millions of good-paying jobs and giving every American, regardless of zip code, the opportunity to compete in today's economy. New Democrats are a group of 61 pro-growth members, and we agree that the party needs an affirmative, forward-looking economic agenda, expanding apprenticeships and job training, investing in job-creating infrastructure, fixing our current healthcare system to keep premiums down. These are solutions that New Democrats have been putting forward to help Americans succeed. And every member may not agree on the fine print, but the goal of better jobs and better wages is exactly what we need to promote across the country. That includes my district in San Diego, where our thriving innovation economy is in desperate need of workers to fill technology and manufacturing jobs that don't necessarily require a college degree, but do require skills. And those are challenges that the American workers and entrepreneurs face in the new economy. It's on us to give them the tools to overcome these challenges. It's going to require more than a message. This is not, as I think Hakeem said, it's not a message, it's an agenda. It's going to require a new commitment to the development of an economic plan that gives everyone a fair shot at success, a plan that gives everyone a better deal. So I want to thank Sherry, David, and Hakeem for their collaborative work they've done to put this together. I know you put in a lot of time. And I look forward to working with all of the folks and all the diverse parts of our caucus to give the American people the leadership and the solutions that they deserve. And with that, I'll open up for questions. Anyone have any questions? Please say who you're directing them to, and I'll let the boss handle it.
No, I'll just make sure that the trains run on time. Yes, question.
You mentioned
And feel free to chime in too.
Supporting apprenticeships. Those are 2 things that the Trump administration has also said that they want to focus on. The first daughter, Ivanka Trump, has said that she wants to put together a paid leave proposal. Labor Secretary Alexander Costa has talked constantly about apprenticeships, and the president recently signed an executive order about apprenticeships. To what extent are you willing to work with the administration to advance some of these priorities?
I think you'll find that the Democrat caucus has always been willing to work with the president on areas where we can find common ground, but we are less interested in the talk and the lip service that they give to those ideas, and we want to see concrete proposals. I serve on the Ways and Means Committee. I've been talking about issues related to family leave and affordable child care, and they've fallen on deaf ears with my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. I think in any area where we can find common ground, we're willing to work together. We haven't been invited to that table to talk about it. So we've got an agenda that we think lays out exactly what we stand for and what we will push for. If they're interested in talking to us about it, we're interested in trying to move on that. But again, we have to be invited to the table, and what we found in this administration so far is a go-it-alone strategy on the part of Republicans that completely leaves Democrats and the constituencies that we represent out of the picture. I don't know if anybody else wants to.
I would just add one thing with respect. This is an agenda which is, as Hakeem and Sherry, as everyone has explained, about increasing people's incomes, higher wages, better jobs for a better future, and we would be happy if our Republican colleagues took this agenda, this action plan, and enacted all these proposals. That would be good for the American people. But, you raise the issue of apprenticeships. In the president's budget, despite the talk about apprenticeship, he zeroes out that program. So, you know, we need meaningful action to provide the American people with a better deal, not just words. And that's what our agenda includes. But we certainly would be willing to work with Republicans to advance any of this. But this is an agenda for the American people, and I encourage people to look at not the words they use, but the actions they take.
Well said. Yes.
Preview or detail some of what the plans are for trade policy as part of the agenda? Where does that fit into the picture? And maybe contrast or compare that to what the president has said on trade?
Do we have anybody from the DPCC?
Well, I think we're working toward an understanding that we need fair trade moving forward. And we want to do that in the context of the entire diversity of our caucus here on the House side as well as on the Senate side. In our initial proposals, we understand that we need to deal with the issue of fair trade moving forward, but we're going to deal with it in a consensus-driven way, similar to the manner in which we've arrived at the agenda that we've laid out here, both in terms of our own House caucus as well as the caucus on the other side of the Capitol with the Senate. The one thing we do know is that we need an agenda that's not talk, but action. And all we've seen from the administration on a whole host of issues, some of them populist in nature, is talk in terms of dealing with the challenges facing the broad American middle class and those who aspire to be part of it, but we've seen no action. Our agenda is designed to present actions that will benefit the American people, and at some point down the road, part of that will, I think, include a sensitive rollout of how to better deal with trade moving forward.
And I would just add to what Hakeem said. We've met with some administrative. Again, I serve on Ways and Means. We've met with some of the administration officials. We heard from President Trump on the campaign trail that NAFTA was the worst deal in history. He wanted to tear it up and start over. When we sat down in a room with Wilbur Ross to ask what specifically about NAFTA would you change that would help American workers? What specifically do you want to renegotiate in a way that's going to be beneficial to American workers? And they really couldn't come up with anything. They glossed over rules of origin for autos, but they had no ideas about what exactly in NAFTA they needed to fix in order to help create American jobs here and to maintain manufacturing here. So, you know, Democratic Caucus has always been very sensitive to the fact that trade needs to be fair and the benefits of trade need to be distributed fairly among those who participate in the economy. So I expect that we'll have ongoing discussions and, as Hakeem said, try to create consensus about what the caucus would like to see the new trade model look like.
Last question. This is a question for Representative Peters. You mentioned in your comments that in your city, in your district, employers are in desperate need of workers.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk to employers in your district, and you're fortunate in that your district is thriving with these companies, when you talk to those employers and they say we are in desperate need of workers, do they explain why they don't, for example, set up a training program for workers, raise wages, bring in workers from outside the United States under a visa? Are they looking to Congress to do the things to solve this problem of a desperate need for workers or a shortage of workers?
Well, in part, sure. I mean, so first of all, on immigration, clearly there's a federal role in that. We would like to have people. We would like to be the center of talent in our country. We shouldn't be shy about that. So that's part of it. I think they would like to see K through 12 not directly, which is not directly a federal issue, but I think there's a lot we can do to influence what people learn as they come out of K through 12 to make sure that they're ready for the new economy. They are setting up apprenticeship programs. There might be ways we can support them. So, but I think the thing about today is that we need to focus on making sure that whatever we can do at the federal level, we're doing to make sure that people have the skills to address these issues.
But as part of this A Better Deal agenda, is part of it specifically addressed to the problem of shortage of workers? I mean, some of you have talked about higher wages, better jobs, but from the employer side of the equation, are maybe any other members want to comment?
I'm happy to comment. In New Hampshire, in my district, we're down to 2.4% unemployment. But what we know is we have lots of people that are working 2 or 3 jobs, and they're not at their highest capacity. So, for example, part of this agenda, we passed an amendment to the Farm Bill for USDA rural development funds to be used for community colleges. And we were able to open a brand new program at the community college in Lebanon, New Hampshire, to create a new campus. Likewise, we got programming in Nashua, New Hampshire for advanced manufacturing. And recently I went to a microprocessing boot camp with 40 people, many of them returning to the workforce. One was a woman who actually had immigrated from Mexico, lived in Nashua, New Hampshire, legal immigrant, and was getting retrained in microprocessing. That'll improve her skills, improve her wages, improve the quality of life for her family. That's the better deal that we're talking about. So we want comprehensive immigration reform. That goes without saying. I think you've heard our position before. But for workers who are already here in America that feel that they're getting a raw deal because they haven't gotten this training to keep up with the 21st century economy.
If I can just add real quick, I've been a small business owner for nearly 3 decades, and one of the issues that we had up in appropriations, which I served on last week, was they also gutted every single dime of money for apprenticeship grants. One of our focuses is on apprenticeships, and we had the previous question, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, on a bill that I have called the LEARNS Act, where we're trying to expand apprenticeships and go beyond the traditional just building trades model and healthcare and IT and a lot of other areas. So apprenticeships are a way to give people the training and the skills they need to get the jobs that are out there, and we're very focused on it, in contrast to Republicans literally gutting every single dime, not just President Trump's budget, but the congressional Republicans as well.
Thank you. I want to thank my colleagues. Oh, sorry.
If I may.
Please.
There are a couple of things that I would like to say about this. I represent the congressional district where there are a lot of jobs and a lot of workers, but the proper training that's necessary is often not there. And you cannot prepare these people for these jobs unless we focus on the type of training that's necessary to do these jobs. It's one thing to talk about STEM, and I'm all for STEM. But the fact of the matter is, when we start talking about moving an economy, meeting people where they are, we've got to focus on the fact that some people want to be electricians, some people want to be plumbers, some people want to be carpenters, landscapers, and that means that we have to provide the tools that are necessary for them to fulfill their dreams and aspirations. And a lot of times that may not have anything to do with a liberal arts education. So I want to thank these members for focusing on the fact that we have to create, develop tools for everybody to move along. And on this issue of trade, I represent the Boeing plant. Boeing in South Carolina is in my congressional district. And I have fought hard for the Ex-Im Bank. When you start talking about trade, you cannot have a successful, they are our biggest exporters. Yet the Republican administration has been opposing the Ex-Im Bank. We have to have fair trade. We talked about these programs. Someone had to show me where a border adjustment tax will contribute to bettering trade policies in our country. So we hear the rhetoric on one side, and we see what they are proposing on the other side. These things just do not jive, as we say down in Gullah-Geechee country.
Again, I want to thank all my colleagues for joining me here today to talk about the better deal for the American public. I want to thank you for your interest, and this concludes our press conference.